Moving into the finals now, the Miyagi Championships. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Ace here. We already know what the other matchup is if you watch the top 4 round. It is Bonney. Ace playing a ton of blockers in their deck. It's going to be interesting to see how it matches up against Bonney, right? Being able to rest anything on the field regardless of cost or power. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed these championships and this video. And if you do, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like, all that stuff, and a bag of chips. I am restreaming this as part of practice for commentary to eventually make it onto the big stage. So if you want to watch the official championships, do not mind me. I've got a link in the description down below where you can just watch it yourself without my commentary. If you missed the other rounds, I've got a playlist on my channel as well that has every single round from this tournament in Top Cut, all compiled in one place for you to watch them consecutively. And as they're deciding their starting hands, let's hear from a word from our sponsor. Listen, if you're itching for a brand new playmat, now is the time to check out Garden, the sponsor of this video. Not only do they have brand new pre-orders up on their website for Chaos Crew, Green Fury, and the Absolute Ruler designs, which by the way, are phenomenal. But if you're a fan of Goldie Roger, Garden actually put out a new playmat called the Journey's End, showcasing Goldie Roger himself, and you yourself can find his one piece with the possibility of a 1 in 20 chance to get the special wanted playmat. And on top of that, if you're like me and you absolutely prefer cloth mats, Garden has officially posted on their site cloth mats for Green Fury, Absolute Ruler, Berserk, and Journey's End. Plus, if you want a ton of other great accessories that aren't just playmats, they've got the King of Hearts t-shirt, matching pin, other pins alongside of it through the whole Cake Island, and even stickers. Make sure with whatever you want in Garden, use my code Atrocious for 8% off. The link to their website is in the description below. Thank you so much for Garden for sponsoring the video, and let's get back to that video. The Bonney hand's got a couple searches to start out with after a mulligan, right? So mulliganed into this. Also has a Scratchman, a Pooh, and some big bodies in the Hody Jones and Dracula Mihawk. We'll see what the searches of the Bonney happens to be. Ace keeping this hand, not opting for a mulligan. It's got a Marco in there, a Yamato, Jozu, all great cards, as well as the 1-cost Garp and a 4-cost Atmos, right? A lot of move potential, especially with the Jozu, the Atmos, right? Being able to potentially remove cards off the field from the Bonney, and has a little bit of draw in the Marco and Yamato as well as the Garp. So we'll see how this goes for our 2 players here, and welcome to the finals. Bonney going first is going to be using the Jewelry Bonney, right? Establishing that onto the field in the next turn on 3. And so the Ace starting out with the 1-cost Garp, being able to look at the top 4 for a 3-cost or less character, 3-cost or higher character, on that top 4, does find a 10-drop Midgame and also a Goldie Roger to be able to utilize. So ends up going with the Midgame, one of the best cards within this deck, right? And one of the best cards in OP13, being able to draw, filter the hand, and also give Dawn, as well as establish a 12,000 power blocker. On the Ezo, on their other Dawn 4 turn, is going to find an I Am Whitebeard event, a perfect combination with that 10-cost Midgame. And so the Bonney now having the information that Ace is going to be able to use that combo later in this game. Bonney starting out the turn with Ace 1-drop search is going to go ahead and look at that top 5 for a supernova type card. Finds a couple of them in there to be able to snag, including a 2K or maybe a 5-drop Bonney blocker. Got to be careful though with the 5-drop Bonney blocker, because like I mentioned earlier, with the removal potential of Ace, is going to be able to remove the Bonney off of the field with Jozu, especially establishing multiple little 1-drops on the field at the start of this game. Ends up grabbing a Trafalgar Law, one of the great rares of OP13, and we'll see if they utilize the other 2 Dawn for just another search, but no, actually goes with a Scratchman, a Pooh instead, swinging now at this Garp, maybe trying to remove some of these bodies on the field, especially as a 2,000 Garp right here, and the Ezo being a 0 power. This means that Ace more than likely is going to have to swing at this Bonney, right? Can't go ahead with one of their searchers and utilize a swing. And so now with the Ace's turn going on to 4, may go ahead and just play the Marco, but is actually going to go Atmos instead. The Atmos, revealing 2 Whitebeard Pirates cards, the 2 that we searched, is actually going to get the Bonney off the field, right? Something similar in some senses to swinging added at some points. And Ace actually just passing off the turn is maybe trying to go like a little bit of a starve method on the Bonney, not going in with the swing, does not want this Ezo to get turned sideways. And so now Bonney on the 5 Dawn turn, just going to play that Bonney once again, right? 1 extra Dawn invested on this search is going to have a couple targets that they can grab, right? I see Kid Killer searches. I see another X-Drake 2K, a Scratchman, a Pooh. And so the X-Drake coming in and being grabbed off of that nice 5-cost X-Drake that we've seen as a mainstay now in the Bonney deck since the release of Starter Deck 24. Still has 3 Dawn left to be able to work with and is just going to turn another Bonney sideways, right, to be able to search once again for a lot of these key pieces that Bonney needs. Is going to finally find a Cavendish to be able to use within the next turn, right, once they hit 7. So kind of sets you up very well, but you still haven't really swung at lead yet to apply any pressure. Now Ace with a couple bodies on a board is going to be able on a 6 Dawn turn to play something like Yamato onto the field to be able to do a little bit more drawing, but first starts out with the 6K swing at lead, resting the Atmos with Bonney's leader effect, or actually the 6K swing going at one of these Bonney searchers. The Ace now going in at a swing at the other jewelry Bonney searchers, wanting to utilize this Ezo as a 1000 power swing. And you may think it's a little weird for Ezo to commit Dawn and swing because of the other effect, but the other effect on the Ezo that activate main or on opponent's attack, my apologies, can be used if an attack is being directed at that character. So is going to grab another 10 cost Newgate onto the hand. And with 4 Dawn left, maybe thinking about playing something like Marco, right? Still out onto the field as active, especially as Bonney used the leader swing to get rid of that Atmos. Now going ahead and drawing for a turn, has to make a decision between whether they want to use Cavendish or Carrot. And so the Scratchman of Pooh going in with the swing again, prompting that activate main like I talked about earlier, is actually going to prioritize the Jozu instead of the Yamato, right? Especially because if there's something like a Cavendish or Carrot that comes down onto the field of this turn, Jozu with the other Ezo on the field is going to be able to bounce them back, kind of controlling this board of Bonney's mid-game characters that are so important, costing a 6 or less. It's kind of in a curious spot of what you want to do at this point, right? You can gain some extra Dawn because of the Cavendish, but Carrot would be able to keep this Atmos stunned even if a Jozu were to come out onto the field. And so uses the Trafalgar Law to pick up the Scratchman of Pooh and goes instead with the Cavendish instead of the Carrot just to get a bigger swing at this Atmos, right? Wants to get it off the field a little bit, is going to command 2 cards with a leader effect and a 2K, or potentially with Marco, could just be 1 card on the block. So ends up going in with the minus to put it back to a 5,000 power leader and blocks with the Marco. Is going to get out of that swing and now goes off to Ace's next turn. Both leaders still at full life at this point. Bonney with 5 and Ace at 3. Does find a red rock to be able to utilize. That red rock could be very nice. Again, something like a 9 cost Zoro if it comes onto the field. But I think Jozu probably the angle at this point potentially to be able to control the board a little bit. But could go the I Am Whitebeard event, right? The I Am Whitebeard event, definitely a good one to be able to utilize and cheat out your 10 cost Newgates. Would allow you to commit a lot of Dawn to leader and one of your characters to be able to get some extra swings in and really force your opponent to choose of whether or not they want to commit their leader effect on one of the other swings that you have, whether that's Marco or Atmos, whatever you commit more Dawn to, or if you want to use it on the big 10 drop blocker Newgate. Is going to go with that 8 cost I Am Whitebeard event to play down the Newgate. The Newgate going in and actually taking a life, making Bonney have to face against an 8,000 power leader, is going to go ahead and attach 2 to both Ace and Atmos. But before you do that, you do need to draw 2 and trash 1, right? Especially with Ace. I don't think it's a optional draw 2, trash 1. It is a mandatory draw 2, trash 1. So you do want to make sure that you do not forget, as it clearly says on there, draw 2 and discard 1, not up to 2 and discard 1. So trying to figure out what he wants to discard at this point. Has a couple different options. I think, honestly, you want to hold the red rock, but I think actually gave away the EZO as I was pulling up the translation for the Newgate. Ends up using leader effect on this Bonney. And again, like I mentioned, has to decide of one of the 2 evils that are coming here. The potential bodies that could swing, and maybe the Atmos or the Marco, or go in with the big 10-drop Newgate and chooses the Marco instead. The Marco, now not having the ability to go ahead and block for 3 cards, is going to go ahead and counter out of that swing. Go in, save the Cavendish from both the leader and the Atmos swings, and pass off the turn, pitching so many cards in hand to be able to make that happen. Now on a 9 Dawn turn, could play something like Dracul Mihawk here to be able to establish a character, and also maybe play down a carrot if you wanted, kind of do a little bit more setup turns. Maybe swing at this board a little bit, and ends up starting the leader's swing with a 5,000 power over at Atmos. It is going to get the KO to draw 1 card off of leader effect, or actually no, not draw 1 card, I'm sorry, because Atmos is 5,000, not 6,000 power. That's something that you do need to know, that Ace's leader effect specifies that it's a 6,000 power or more is KO'd on that base power. So plays that Dracul Mihawk, like I mentioned, you know, establishing a big blocker of their own, although not as big as old Edward Newgate. And now with the Cavendish swinging at the Marco, is going to go ahead and restand to Dawn. 6,000 power swing. Ace still having stuff like leader effect to be able to utilize. Maybe he has the opportunity as well to pitch a 1K if he wants, and is just going to go with a Garp 1K to get out of that swing. The 5 is going to go with the carrot and stun the Marco anyways at this point, leaving 2 Dawn active just to be able to rest the Edward Newgate body potentially, even if he plays another one out onto the field. Top decking the 8-cost I Am Whitebeard event. Does have the opportunity, if he wants to use that full effect yet again to become an 8,000 power character and kind of make it awkward of a situation for Bonney to be able to swing at lead, right? We saw Ace in the top 4 round against the Emu really utilize the secondary effect on that event to be able to make the math a little bit awkward for Emu to minimize the amount of swings, especially when you guard early. You've got the risk of being able to take that life and be more aggressive. So now the Newgate swing, resting the Ace leader on the leader effect, just letting that Cavendish go, says, you know what, at this point, don't think I can keep it alive right now. And so with no more swings left as of yet, is going to go ahead and play the Edward Newgate just outright at this point with the draw to trash 1. You play the Edward Newgate outright in comparison to the 8-cost event because technically it keeps 1 more card in hand, right? Because the 8-cost event is a 2-card combo where the Newgate is a 1-card combo. You're actually net even on playing 2 cards, playing and trashing the combination, whereas the 8-cost event is a -1 card play. Pitches the 2K Uta at this point, and now goes in and attaches the 2 Dawn 2 leader and Newgate because you need to do that after there, and passes off the turn. Bonney still at 5 life, and we've been almost like halfway through this game at this point in terms of the amount of time, but it does feel like that one of these players is going to break through sooner rather than later, especially with Bonney only having about 4 cards in hand at this point. Is going to go ahead with the carrot, potentially swing 8,000 power, right? Remember that you are facing against a 6,000 power leader again. And so is going to commit this 8, freezing the Marco at this point. Carrot just being a strong card in matchups such as this, where there are impactful 7-cost or less bodies onto the field. And especially with not 10 Dawn open, you can make this a free block, right? Not going to be like a 10-drop Doflamingo or anything like that that comes onto the field. And or a 10-drop Law and Beppo. Now attaching 3, just going to be another 8,000 power swing with this Bonney leader at lead. We've talked about in the past how 8,000, just a good card against Ace, right? Even though Ace being able to use any card essentially as a 2K with its leader effect of pitching 1 card for minus 2,000, it still forces 2 cards out of hand to be able to get out of different swings. So another 8,000 power swing is using leader effect for the Newgate, and a Jozu to get out of that one is maybe thinking about attaching to Trafalgar Law and going in with just another 8,000 power swing. Is going to be 2K, 1K out of that one. Ace running out of cards in hand, only at 4. Drops a 2-drop Koshiro to be able to maybe try to keep some of these bodies alive at this point, especially with a couple Newgates out onto the field. You can almost guarantee that one of these Newgates is going to be rested by the Bonney leader effect. So it's going to be interesting to see how he tries to balance through this, right? Especially with no more Newgates on the field, but an I Am Whitebeard event. Ace sitting at 1 life does still have the 1-drop Garp to be able to utilize, and if he were to go down to 0, the Roger would activate, right? But still put you in an awkward position, I feel like. Maybe having to battle board a little bit here. The Bonney still having the Hody Jones in hand. Right now I was thinking about a little bit of math of where he would like to attach this Don. Is going to go ahead swing 8,000 power over at the Carrot. Wants to keep that Marco up as active. Is going to go ahead and block with the Koshiro after the Edward Newgate gets rested off of Bonney's leader effect, and maybe is thinking about going in and using this Newgate, resting all of his blockers out onto the field, but instead goes with a 1-cost guard, maybe trying to look for the 3rd Edward Newgate inside this top 4. So does not find it, I don't think, but ends up finding a King Do 2K, a good card to be able to grab to have even more counter in the hand. And now you got to think about, with no blockers left, do you go in with this Edward Newgate? If he has Hody Jones right in his hand, Newgate going to be rested anyways at this point. So I don't think it's a terrible idea to rest this Newgate. Does kind of put you in a sticky spot either way, but I think you're kind of just stuck at that point. And so going in with that swing now at the Carrot, trying to just get it off the field, finally does. And the Red Rock coming in with the rest of the Dawn, except for 1 to bottom deck that Mihawk. Now really minimizing the amount of swings that you're probably going to face against in this turn, even with Hody Jones, and puts you in a prime position, I feel like, in with 1 Dawn active, feigning a Radical Beam potentially. So Bonney now, even though as still at 5 life, 1 character on the field in the Trafalgar Law, has free range to swing at this Ace leader at this point in the game. There is a situation right now that if you just split the Dawn and just go 5 onto your leader, or a 10,000 power swing, and then 5 onto your Trafalgar Law with an 11,000 power swing, just go 10, 11, you could be able maybe mathematically to win this game. Hody Jones, if you played that down, would sacrifice 7 Dawn, but would be able to rest this potential event card that's in the Ace's hand, which we know that he doesn't have, but obviously our Bonney player does not know that. And so is actually just going to start out with an 8,000 power swing at leader, trying to see how he reacts with these 2 cards. I think especially with 7 still up as active, if you had Radical Beam, you could definitely utilize it right now to be able to get out of the swing for potentially a Hody Jones or Dead Man's Game-esque kind of event. But I don't think you're worried about Dead Man's Game, actually, now that I think about it. Is going to use that Ezo effect to draw 1 and bottom deck 1, bottom decking the 8-cost event. Finds an Otama, which is a 2K, which is going to be very nice to get out of these swings. Could go ahead, use leader effect on the Goldie Roger, and pitch the King Do, the 2K that was known in hand. So interesting, with that Ezo effect, he would have been able to get out of a 10-11 and not fallen prey to a lethal swing on that turn, regardless of what he got out of life. So goes ahead and attaches 3 Dawn to Trafalgar Law to now swing 9. Ends up going ahead and taking that life, drawing 1 card, Bonney and Radical Beam being the combination, which is a good combination of cards, I feel like, to get. Ends up passing the turn with the Bonney as the play on the field. Bonney just being a nice blocker, especially as you're still very healthy with 5 life. Now the ace is going to go ahead and play Yamato, just a raw draw 2 cards, now building up the amount of counter in the hand, but actually finds no counter in the I Am Whitebeard event and also the 10 cost Newgate. Attaching the 1 Dawn from the Yamato on this swing, one of your blockers is going to get rested in the Edward Newgates or Marcos. You don't have any other blockers to be able to play out onto the field, so just goes ahead and swings 8 at the Law. Feel like you know your Trafalgar Law is going to go down anyways because of the swings, and so now with the 10 cost Newgate swinging at the Trafalgar Law, goes ahead and rest the other one because of your leader effect. Oh, does have a Marco in hand, actually. I forgot about the Marco. The Marco, if you played it for 4, you would lose out on the Radical Beam because you played 5 for the Yamato and attached 1 active Dawn to lead. So you kind of put yourself in a position to where what he just did, you have to pass with 4 active Dawn, maybe miscount. I mean, really wanted to get the Law knockout, so I can't blame him for trying to force 2 cards out of hand on an 8,000 power swing. Now the Bonney at this point, still once again at 5 life, mind you. The Marco blocker, a pesky one, so is just going to jam down Hody Jones to rest a Dawn, and the Marco, or at least the Marco, hasn't decided actually the Dawn, but I think you just want to utilize the Dawn. I think you're just trying to jam face as much as possible, maybe hoping that you have a Dead Man's Game or Hody Jones in the next coming turn. But ends up going with the Yamato instead, ends up taking the life to grab a 1K in the Jewelry Bonney, and has 3 extra Dawn left, right? Because you want to utilize your leader effect, you're really only going to be able to utilize 2 Dawn, right, for swings, but ends up attaching those 2 Dawn to Hody Jones for a 10,000 power swing at lead. Is just going to be something like a Radical Beam and a little bit of counter as well, or maybe a leader effect and Radical Beam fits the job on top of that. And now at this point, you've got to pass the turn with 1 as active, or maybe gamble if they have any counter in hand left at this point. Ends up attaching that 1 Dawn and going in with the 6,000 power swing, losing that gamble of the 1K in the hand, but does net 1 card out. But now at this point as well, you can't rest anything with leader, right? Marco's going to stay active. Newgates are going to stay active. There's a potential for 5 swings to come at you at least. But just playing a hard 10 cost Newgate after that, just filtering the hand a little bit, pitches the 4th 10 cost Newgate. You know that there's no more of these pesky 10 cost blockers, but now the swing's coming in at Hody Jones. Is going to be an 8,000 power swing. Ends up going in with the KO, now taking the life 1 by 1 on these different swings. Finds a 9 cost Oro, finds a 10 cost Law and Beppo, putting the Bonney at 2 life. And with 2-3 blockers still as active, it's not looking good for our Bonney player at this point in the game. No other Hody Jones in hand. I think just 10 cost Law and Beppo and 5 cost Jewelry Bonney. Ends up going 5 for a carrot to be able to freeze the Yamato, and another 5 coming in for Jewelry Bonney. At least puts a blocker out on the field, draw 2 and trash 1, and leaves a Dawn as active. Is going to be able to filter out the hand a little bit for some counter, make the math a little bit more difficult, especially when you have a leader effect on this turn for the ace. But top decking the Red Rock, we may see the Red Rock come in here on this turn, especially with 3 of these Newgates out onto the field. You could bottom deck the Jewelry Bonney and go in with the swings on leader and the 10 cost Newgates, as well as having the Marco on top of that. But especially with a little bit of filtering, how much non-counter do you think Bonney has in hand is the real question. So I was thinking about at least attaching 1 on lead right now. Is actually going to start out swinging 7,000 power at lead, minusing and using the leader effect on 1 of the 10 cost Newgates. This is going to be a simple 2K, 1K to get out of that swing. The Red Rock would be able then to bottom deck the Jewelry Bonney, and he's going to do exactly that, leaving 3 Dawn open with 3 cards in hand, attaching 3 of them to Marco for a 9,000 power swing. Connects. You'll love to see that because now the 10 cost new gates coming in for the win. Thought it was really interesting that he didn't red rock first before going in with the blocks, right? Not giving him an opportunity to block or counter out at all, but ended up connecting through the win, maybe forcing him to have it not being at a good point anyways, I feel like, for the Bonney player, but a close game nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching these Miyagi championships with me. And again, if you missed the other rounds of this tournament, because we did see a decent variety of decks, I feel like, this time around in comparison to the last couple tournaments that we've had, make sure to go check out the playlist that I've got on the channel. It's got every single top cut match on there with my unique English commentary, trying to get in the business of commentary at One Piece Championships. Apologize as well for these coming out a little bit later than usual and not live streaming these championships this week. Usually we live stream them, but just with my schedule and having a tough weekend streaming the case tournament, then going and moving my friend across the city, it's been a busy one, but it's been a good one, and I hope you'd enjoy this. We got a lot of fun content on the way. I'm going to try to make some unique content in the OP13 format that's not just Ace, Emu, Zoro, right? All 3 of those decks. I'm going to try to give a little bit of variety to you guys and some fun, interesting videos, and I hope you stick around for them. Japan Championships happening the next couple weeks. We got Hokkaido Championships this upcoming weekend. We've got the Tokyo Championships during the Thanksgiving weekend, and then Osaka Championships in the middle of December. So I hope you join me on that one, and please subscribe if you want to see more. We'll see you later.